Hey everyone, welcome back to Age and Education channel. Today we shall continue with the chapter Environment. Right? So as I have promised earlier, first we shall look into the summary of the importance of forests. So just recall as what are the points that we have covered yesterday. Importance of forests. What will a forest give us? Forest gives us oxygen, right? Oxygen is so important for the life, right? Next, they absorb carbon dioxide. Why is it absorbing carbon dioxide so important? Because with this, we can be assured that global warming won't be happening, right? To avoid this global warming, we need what? Absorption of carbon dioxide, okay? And after that, the forests support plant life and also animal life, right? So animals will be supported by the plants in the forest as by what? Animals will get food, shelter, etc. from the forest, right? How about the human beings? We get what? We get some fruits, right? Wood, honey, etc. from the forest, right? And after that, many tribal indigenous people will depend on forests for their livelihood, right? So tribal indigenous people will depend on forest for everything. They live in forest. For them, the forests are so sacred, right? So they will feel like the forests have to be protected forever, okay? Now then after this, the other important thing that I have mentioned is they help in rainfall, right? Why? It is because of the process called as transpiration, right? So because of transpiration, the rainfall can also be next. What else? Just think, they act as barriers, right? Barriers to wind. Like whenever there are any strong winds, the entire trees and everything which are so taller, they will help the wind to to be broken down, or like the speed will be reduced, right? As such, they act as barriers to wind, okay? Now the most important thing, like I don't say most, every point here is important, but it also helps in what? Soil erosion prevention, right? Preventing soil erosion. So do you remember about this concept of soil erosion? Every trees and plant, every tree and plant will have what? They will have roots, right? So these roots act as anchor and they will hold the soil. So whenever there is any rainfall and water flowing through the soil won't get carried away with the water, right? The soil will be intact because the roots of the plants and the trees have held this soil together at a place, okay? So forests are also so important for the soil erosion prevention, okay? Now this is about the importance of forests. Now we shall get into the layers of the forest, okay? So when you see a forest from a distance, you can see that there is a layered structure in the forest, right? So it means that some trees will occupy some height, other set of trees will occupy another height, and some plants will be occupying this place, and like some other herbs will be occupying this area, and there will be grass on the floor, right? So when you look it from a faraway place, you can see this type of layered structure of the forest, okay? So now we shall understand about what are these layers, what are the names, and how much amount of sunlight they get, and what functions they serve, and what are the animals that will be staying in these layers, and everything else, okay? So first thing I want to mention here is that in a tree or any type of vegetation, the part that is above the trunk is called as crown, right? So for the taller trees, the crowns will be around this area, and for the shorter trees, it will be here, right? And here you can find the other plants, and here herbs, right? So this is about the forest layers, and we shall look into the naming of these layers and the properties, right? So here the first layer is emergent layer. It means the tallest trees of the entire forest, emergent layer, right? Here the trees will be of height around 40 to 70 meters or around 200 feet. Okay, so here you can find the tallest trees, and so as they are taller, they will get enough sunlight, and they also get exposed to lot of wind, right? Exposed to lot of wind. And you can find many animals like animals as such, like toucan and monkeys, some type of snakes, butterflies, insects, and everything in this layer, right? Butterflies, insects, etc. Okay, so they will get here enough sunlight, and also these are exposed to lot of winds. These 2 points are so important. Okay, so emergent layer 40 to 70 meters, tallest of all the layers. Okay, next, the next layer, the second layer. So we are done with this layer. This is emergent layer, right? So next we will come to next layer. What is this layer called as? Canopy. What is it? Canopy. So when you say canopy, you can associate this word to be denser things, right? So canopy comes with dense. So you can say that this layer is continuous and dense. Dense and continuous, and the height will be around 100 feet. Okay, so this will appear like a green roof, and so it is called as canopy. So canopy being so dense and continuous, occurring like green roof, everything goes together, right? So, and also umbrella like, you can even say that umbrella like. Okay, so because it's umbrella like and it is dense, what it does, it blocks the sunlight, right? It won't allow the sunlight to get down to the subsequent layers, right? So there is another layer beneath this canopy layer, right? So the light will be blocked by this canopy layer, and so a little amount of light will only reach the other layers that are under this canopy layer. Okay, now other thing, what are the animals that can be seen here? You can find monkeys, orangutans, some sort of snakes, birds, etc. Okay, these animals, like remembering these animals as such is not important, because they keep on moving here and there. We need not think much about these animals. As I have to mention here, I am mentioning it. But what is more important here would be these layers, and what comes at the top, what comes at the bottom, and how about this the amount of sunlight that is reaching these layers. This will be important here. Okay, now we are done with the layer canopy. Now next comes the layer what? Understory, right? Understory layer. Why is it called understory? Because it will have only little amount of sunlight that is reaching, right? All the filtered sunlight itself, only a little amount of filtered sunlight will be reaching this layer of understory. Okay, so what can you expect? If there is little sunlight, it means that the leaves will be bigger. That is an adaptation that is made by the plants of this layer. As little amount of sunlight reaches, if the leaves are too little, then only minute amount of sunlight will be reaching the tree. Then how can it make the food for itself, right? So if the leaves are bigger, more amount of sunlight can be trapped by the leaf and can be used by the leaf to make food for the entire tree. So here for the understory layer of plants, you can find big leaves, right? Big leaves, and the sunlight, that is the filtered sunlight, that is reaching this area after crossing the canopy, will be captured by these big leaves so that they can live. These plants can live and sustain. Okay, and again, if I have to mention about the what do you call the animals, and other thing I forgot to mention is this area will be hot and damp. What is it? Hot and damp. Okay, the animals, you can say, like again monkeys. Everywhere you can find monkeys, right? Monkeys, and some kinds of poisonous frogs too will be there here. Okay, owls, lizards, leopards, this type of animals you can see in this layer. Okay, next comes what? So the next final layer is forest floor. What is this forest floor? The name itself suggests it is the floor of the forest, right? So as you know, if there are so many plants and trees, there will also be the leaves falling off, fruits falling off, and everything else of the trees keep falling down, right? So you can find many dead and decaying leaves, fruits here. What is it? Dead and decaying leaves and fruits. Leaves and leaves and fruits. Okay, and here the floor will be damp, dark. Damp means will be humid type, right? So damp, dark, and it will be covered with the dead and decaying leaves. And you see here, you can find many types of plants and animals and decomposers. Everything will have their own adaptations to as they have to survive very minimal sunlight, right? So as the sunlight that is reaching this area will be very minimal, you can find the land there to be damp, right, dark, and because of this low sunlight conditions, only some type of animals and plants can survive in this type of what do you call conditions, right? So what are the animals? You can find many large mammals like tiger, rhinoceros, elephants, and also as you have this dead and decaying leaves and materials, you automatically will find some decomposers like bacteria, fungi, etc. Okay, so this is about the forest floor. Now to recall, what are all the layers that we have mentioned? Emergent layer, then comes what? Canopy. After that, understory. The final layer is forest floor, right? This is about the layers of the forest. The next topic we shall get into is this interdependence of plants and animals, right? So first of all, just think, are animals dependent on plants and plants dependent on animals? Yes or no? Obviously the answer is yes, right? Animals depend on plants, and in the same manner plants also depend on animals. So what are the needs here? What are the needs that are fulfilled by the plants? Animals need what? They need oxygen, right? And oxygen, this demand for oxygen is fulfilled by plants. And also what? Animals will get food from plants, animals will get shelter from plants, right? And also some birds will use the plants for nesting purposes, and there are many other needs of plants, right? Now, in what way plants are dependent on animals? You might think that no, as plants are primary producers, they don't need any support, they don't need animals for its survival. Don't think like that. Plants do need animals in some ways, like they get nutrients from the animals. Until and unless adequate nutrients are present, the plants can't survive, right? Plants also need some nutrients, and these nutrients can be sourced from animals. Okay, and also plants need animals for pollination, right? Why is pollination important? Pollination is important for reproduction, right? Reproduction means the plants can get their what do you call offsprings from because of this process of pollination and seed dispersal, right? And for this the animals will help the plants. In this way animals and plants are interdependent. Okay, now what is the next thing that we can consider here to get into is that in a forest you can say that forest will have a specific habitat, right? In this habitat there will be many types of animals present, and these animals and plants depend on one another. This concept of interdependence boils down to the survival of these plants and animals in a particular habitat, right? So in order to get into the details of all this, first of all we shall look into the concept of producers, consumers and decomposers. Okay, now what are these producers? As you all know, plants are the primary producers, right? Are the primary producer. It means that using water and water, sunlight, carbon dioxide, they can make their own food, and some animals depend on these plants for their food needs, right? So those animals that exclusively eat plants to live, they are called as what? Herbivores, right? So herbivores can be considered as these plants are considered as producers, and the herbivores are considered as primary consumers, right? So these are the primary consumers. What next? Okay, first we will make a clear picture so that it will be easy for you to understand the things. First of all, what we have mentioned, producers. What are the producers? Plants, right? The plants are the producers, and the animals that depend on these plants for their food needs, those are called as herbivores, or these are primary consumers, right? So the example that we can mention here is what? Grasshopper, suppose. Okay, grasshopper can be considered as a herbivore and they are called as primary consumers. Now again, there will be some other set of animals that will feed on these herbivores, right? These animals can be called as secondary consumers. And what can come here? There will be many set of animals that can come here, but here if we consider something typical with regard to grasshopper, relevant with regard to grasshopper, we can say that a frog or mouse that will eat this grasshopper can be considered to be secondary consumers. So secondary consumers are the carnivores that eat the herbivores, right? So what next? Next comes what? Tertiary consumers, right? Third level, tertiary consumers. These are the carnivores that eat the carnivores. Okay, here what you can mention, some snake or hawk or eagle, all these can be considered to be tertiary consumers. And upon all these, right, there are some other types of animals like what do you call, decomposers or detritivores, right? These will feed on all, right? On all trophic levels they can be found. These are called as decomposers. So we have covered the concept of what? Producers, consumers and decomposers, right? Now this you can see that there is some sequence to it, right? So there is some linear sequence, as this will eat that, that will eat this one, everything is going in a linear manner. There are producers and there are primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, right? And you can see that one is depending upon the food needs upon other in a linear and sequential manner, right? And it means that when something is depending on something else, then the nutrients and energy will also be passing from level to level, right? So in the sense, from the plants, the nutrients and energy are passing to primary consumers, and from primary consumers again it is passing to secondary consumers, right? So when this linear sequence of organisms where the nutrition and energy flow is going, this can be considered to be a food chain, right? So what is a food chain? Food chain is a linear sequence of organisms wherein you can find the flow of nutrients and energy, right? And it is a sort of interrelationship. What is it? It is a sort of interrelationship between the animals, between the producers, consumers, wherein you can find what eats what, who eats whom, right? And every organism, you can find these set of organisms here, and these set of organisms here, and these set of organisms here. So each level can be considered called as trophic level. What is it? Trophic level. So you can say that the primary consumers are at this trophic level, and the secondary consumers are here, the tertiary consumers are here. And this chain, this linear sequence of chain where you can find the organisms and where the nutrients and energy are flowing, this is called as what? Food chain, right? In food chain, what you can find? You can get this interrelationship between different plants and animals. Alright, next we shall look into the concept of food web, right? So previously what we have seen? We have seen about the food chain. Food chain, what is the meaning of it? It is the linear sequence of the organisms and the consequent flow of nutrients and energy, right? Linear sequence of organisms and flow of nutrients and energy. But do you think in reality the organisms will be exactly placed in the same manner? No, right? See, the grasshopper can be food either to a frog or a mouse. It can also be a food to hawk, which is at the next level, right? So what we have mentioned here, we said that there will be producers, then primary consumers, and then secondary consumers and tertiary consumers, right? Now, as usual, what will be the producers? What are the producers? Plants, right? And here, what are the primary consumers? Consider grasshopper, okay? And here, secondary consumers, consider it to be what? Frog, right? And tertiary consumers, let us take it to be hawk. Now tell me, so what we have mentioned, this plants will become food to grasshoppers, right? And grasshoppers will become food to frog, and frog will become food to hawk. But don't you think the grasshopper can also become food to hawk? Yes, right? So in this manner there will be many number of arrangements. The interdependence is not as linear or as sequential as shown here. So one trophic level, the organism at one trophic level can eat or can be eaten by an organism of some other trophic level too, like not the sequential thing or that comes adjacent to it, but by something else too. And there will be some other organisms in the same trophic level that can eat too or that can be eaten. So it is a kind of web, not a sequential chain as such, right? So for understanding, we can say about this interdependence between these organisms, and to understand the concepts of producers, consumers, decomposers, we can use this food chain. But in reality what happens is we can see a food web here, right? So we can actually make a web, like consider grass here, grasshopper, right? Lizard, hawk, snake, So you can make many relations here, right? Like grasshopper, for the grass will become the food for grasshopper, and grasshopper will become food for lizard, and also grasshopper will become food for hawk, right? And grass will also become food for mouse, okay? And mouse will become food for snake, and snake will become food for hawk, right? And the mouse will also become food for hawk. So see, isn't it something complicated? This is called as food web. Okay, these interconnected food chains form the food web. So what is food web? The interconnected food chains is called as food web. Interconnected food chains. Food chains, right? So this is about the food web, and it is very important that this interdependence of plants and animals in this in a food chain is maintained, because only then the balance of nature can be preserved, right? If you consider like one type of animal getting totally extinct, then the other population that is dependent on it may get extinct too. Or some animals, like whatever, if a animal is extinct, and if some other animal is eaten by this extinct animal, then that other animal which actually has to become food, its population may get increased, right? So it is very important to balance the nature, right? And so you have to protect the nature and act in a careful and cautious manner. Okay, and next topic would be deforestation, like why, what are the why this deforestation is being caused, and we will see what are the consequences and how important it is to conserve the forest and how to actually conserve the forest. We will look about all these in the next video. Okay, okay, then as usual, if you are happy with the video, consider liking and subscribing. Okay, thank you. Bye. See you in the next video.